Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
And greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, we're so happy to have as our guest Mr. Paul Schulick. Paul has been a pioneer and a paradigm-shifting entrepreneur, master herbalist, and formulator. Paul's passion for natural healing began as a young child while accompanying his pediatrician dad on house calls. He understood that it wasn't simply the medicine that enlivened healing, but the loving care emanated from his father to his patients. In the early 1970s, Paul embarked on a formal study of alternative health through personal exploration into healing and avid readings of the naturopathic greats of our time. Paul formalized his master herbalist training at the School for Natural Healing under the direction of the renowned Dr. John Christopher, which ignited his passion for teaching, lecturing, and formulating. His early herbal formulations were recognized as new chapters and set the stage for a procession of singular contributions to the food supplement industry. At Natural Products Expo West, Schulick was inducted into the Hall of Legends, the highest award in the natural products industry. And for today, our topic, good place to visit, is called forthebiome.com. So thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you, Ellen. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Now, you have been, like we talked about, on a very long path of learning. Let me just ask you, since you were involved with your dad, what made you not want to pursue being a doctor, but instead working in the field of herbal medicine?
That's a great question. I was actually pre-med in college, and I was experiencing as I think the path that many people take. I was experiencing a physical discomfort in my digestive system in the early 70s, and my dad recommended a drug for me, and the drug made me sicker, and so in 1973 I read Jethro Kloss's book, Back to Eden, and tried a few of his remedies for the same digestive disorder that my dad's drug had made me sicker, and I got better. So I changed course in 1973 to my father's. He was not happy with my choice, but it was one that I was called for. So that's the path.
And it came sort of clearly to you as a message, and you pursued it for many, many years. Now, also, it's interesting that we're talking about you developing herbal formulations that were called new chapters, because I believe that then you initiated that company, which was a very big company in the natural products industry.
Yes, it was the inspiration actually from the very, very early process that really led me to realize that there were products that were not available in the natural products industry that I could. I'm so sorry. This background, I need to.
We're not hearing too much, so don't worry about that.
Okay. It's the world of technology, so there's just so many things going on. It was the recognition in my health food store. My wife Barbie and I started a health food business in 1979, and it was there that I realized that so many people, and I'm sure you've had this experience hundreds, if not thousands of times now, Ellen, is that so many people are exploring their health process, and they find they're just not satisfied with what they get from the conventional system, so they look outside. And so for me, when in my health food store, I realized there were products that were simply not available. And back in the late 70s, there were not many herbal products that were available for consumers to use. And then in the early 80s, there were not that many vitamins and minerals that were in a form that would be more easily utilizable. So essentially what we did was we just created vitamins and minerals in the form of fermented whole food. And that was a new chapter, basically.
It really was, and of course it's all, very big today. So it really, really caught on and became a popular way because we knew that the absorption of the nutrients was much better. When we look at something like calcium, they used to use, let's say, just ground up shells, and most of it wasn't absorbed, and it could even form kidney stones. But the full form that you put forth was just so much better.
Well, thank you. The real gratifying part of it was not only that they were absorbed better, but I think also that when people eat fermented foods, as you well know, I could not digest milk or for that matter even beans and say even some vegetables like cabbage. But when I would eat sauerkraut or have tempeh or have even yogurt or kefir, I would be able to digest it perfectly. So fermentation, I wrote a book about it called Life Bridge, which basically details the amazing advantages through time that our species has utilized fermentation.
And I'd like to remind you that you're listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, and my guest today is Mr. Paul Schulick. Now, to give out a good place to look for you now, Paul, would that be forthebiome.com? Is that the best place for our listeners to find you?
Yes, it is, Ellen. Thank you. That is the new entrepreneurial adventure that I'm on after I've basically left New Chapter. For the biome. Many people may not be fully aware that a biome is a community. So therefore, a microbiome, which more people are familiar with, they think of the gut microbiome, but there's other microbiomes like on the skin and in other parts of our body. So in our ears and our nose and our genitals, there's all different populations. Like there's on the skin, there's a rainforest area, and then there's a desert area, and essentially the whole notion of a biome is one that we are exploring when we create our products. So I would say the global biome is also obviously of great interest to all of us, and so it is our intention to bring a good energy both to the local microscopic biome and then even to the global biome.
And certainly that word, microbiome, has, suddenly been all the rage. I know many of us were talking about it even years and years ago with your focus on fermentation. And what a great gift you just gave our listeners, because one of the things that I highly recommend is eating some fermented food every day. But you do need to read your labels, because if you look at, let's say, commercial sauerkraut, and you read the ingredients on the back, it's going to be loaded with things like benzoates, preservatives, coloring agents. That's not what you want. But yet that same product is available if you go to the health food store, and you can also look online, and it'll say the same thing like cabbage and salt and water. It won't say anything about all those preservatives, and that's really the one that you want.
It's beautiful. That and I could not be more emphatic about the benefit of replenishing on a daily basis, as your recommendation is, Ellen, to support the microbiome. Because it's so interesting. One of the most interesting studies that I've read in the past was that you can make a dietary change, and then it could take quite some time to make a shift in your microbiome. But when you go through a period of severe anger or fear stress, what can happen is that change can happen really rapidly. So if you are going through a lot of stress, which so many of us are experiencing, the importance of constantly nourishing and replenishing your intestinal flora, which also then in turn affects your skin flora and all the other communication systems around your body. It's really, really important to continue to nurture your own internal and external forest of microbiome.
Yes, that's so true. So why did you focus here on forthebiome.com on skin health? What do you mean by skin is our third brain?
Well, the skin is as I'd say many people, especially who are listening to this show, they're aware that the skin is the largest organ of the body. But what many people are unaware is that the skin is populated by viruses, bacteria, fungi, and they actually make up more cells internally and externally than our human cells. And so for me to focus on the largest organ of the body, because it's one that we communicate so quickly with each other. In microseconds, I can look at you and you can look at me, and you could tell my age, my sex, my emotional status, and we instantly tell that and communicate with each other beyond our ability on a conscious level. It's subconscious. So what scientists over the past 10 years are now concluding is that the skin is much more than we had ever dreamed it was. It's almost a little bit like science fiction, Ellen, in that the skin can actually hear, the skin can actually see, the skin can smell, the skin can actually taste, and the skin is producing all of the same the neuroendocrine functions of the brain. It can produce melatonin, it can produce serotonin, it can produce oxytocin, it can produce norepinephrine. It produces in the skin cells called keratinocytes, and the other skin cells called melanocytes and fibroblasts. All those cells are producing these hosts of hormones that are communicating and telling all the other systems of our body whether it is safe or whether it is not safe, and also helping our immune system determine who is friend and who is foe. And so the first time I read a reference was in 2015. A Japanese scientist who coined, who I saw, a Japanese researcher by the name of Mitsuhiro Denda, called the skin a third brain. And since then, I've been essentially studying and realizing just how much of that we might be able to cultivate and understand by literally letting our skin listen. We talk about letting our gut hear, like listen to your gut. Well, we also, in my assessment, and the science is confirming it, that we can also listen to our skin. And so that's essentially a really, really incredible opportunity for us to learn more and to become more sentient beings ourselves.
Wow, fascinating information. And we're going to take a little break right here. We're listening to Paul Schulick, and you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. You can always listen live or online at nccradio.org or on iHeartRadio. For more information on today's guest or topic, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. Say it's for Herbally Yours. Stay tuned. Herbally Yours will be right back.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to more right here on Herbally Yours. We love to meet you in person. If you go to naturalnurse.com and click on calendar, you will see all the events that you can join myself, Ellen Kamai, the Natural Nurse, with either on online events or in person. We have things going on in Huntington, in Brentwood, in Old Bethpage. You can come out with us and gather wild plants that we can use for food and medicine, and you can learn how to make them into your own salves and lotions and teas and extracts. So that's, something you can do. Or, of course, we have all of our online events, most of which offer CE credits for professionals, or you can just take them for your own fun and knowledge. And thank you so much for joining us today. We are speaking with Mr. Paul Schulick, who was a master herbalist, and he took master herbalist training at the School for Natural Healing and has been in the natural products industry as a leader and formulator literally for decades. And we're talking about his project, which is forthebiome.com. That's the word for, F-O-R, the T-H-E, biome, B-I-O-M-E.com. And Paul is sharing with us that biome means community. And here we're talking about the community of microorganisms that live on our skin, and very interesting concept, that are in constant communication with the rest of us. So that's a fascinating concept, Paul, that I'm sure might be new to many people.
When I read the research from Mark Light in 2013, this idea that the microbiome, it's so humbling to think of ourselves as mostly microbial in nature, that they are actually monitoring our human cells. And he actually, his quotation was, they are monitoring us and we are monitoring them. So again, the story that I like to tell is so much like science fiction. But it's real. And so I find the whole story amazing. And then for me to play with the what I refer to as the five kingdoms, the botanical kingdom, the fungal kingdom, the algae kingdom, microbial kingdom, and then lastly the animal kingdom, to be able to bring to bear and communicate with this microbiome to form this incredible communication system. And there's a famous ancient Chinese proverb that where there is connection, there is no pain, and where there is pain, there is no connection. And so for me, understanding the connections that occur and how to facilitate the flow of energy in and around our bodies and to other bodies is an incredible opportunity. And using herbs like you and I are so familiar with, but making them in a form that is really unique in the marketplace. Herbs like chamomile and Haematococcus pluvialis, and then taking those and extracting them, and then finding the incredible impact they have on the microbiome. So that, to me, is a real thrilling opportunity for researchers like ourselves.
And I know you've been working a long time and have a deep understanding about mushrooms, but not everybody thinks of that in terms of optimum skincare.
Well, a whole new world is evolving. In the Orient, mushrooms have been used topically as well as internally for thousands of years. And so, again, part of our job is to rediscover. And I think that to make sure that we preserve the ancient wisdom. And so I was really impressed years and years ago when I was exploring for the first time traditional Chinese medicine, and I asked myself, well, what is the most valuable of the most valuable ancient systems of all time for thousands and thousands of years, where marketing wasn't the core of it, but actually was its efficacy. And the number one medicine of all time is essentially Ganoderma lucidum, or what we commonly refer to as reishi. And so years ago, I started making reishi into a cream and applied it topically, and found really quite remarkable benefits. And so today, I basically am reigniting the topical interest and realizing that there's great prebiotic and probiotic potential to applying mushrooms to the skin, and we've already done some interesting research showing anti-inflammatory influence and immunomodulating influence that is very, very positive.
Now, what about, I just want to remind our listeners that you're listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, and my guest is longtime herbalist and leader in the field of natural medicine, Paul Schulick. And you can find out more at forthebiome.com. We're talking about skin health. What about when people are slathering on their skin, Paul, all these really toxic chemicals, which we can easily read on the ingredient list of a great variety of skin products?
Yeah, one of my goals, Ellen, in this next venture is to alert people that to look at the label and then ask yourself a very simple question: would I be willing to eat this? And if you're not willing to eat it, then don't really put it on your skin, because your skin is in many ways eating what you're putting on it. And the recent study that was done on sunscreen showing how these chemicals are finding their way into the bloodstream through the skin, it's a bit alarming. And so from my perspective, and I'm sure you would share this, whatever you put on your skin, you want to be sure that you would be willing to eat it. And so that's why we have certified organic as one of our core values for the products, and as well as all of the science that we have been accumulating and the historic benefits of materials like mushrooms. So it's very, very exciting to be able to offer this kind of opportunity.
I would say it is. And that's a really, I think that's a simple rule for everyone all the time. Read every label, or use things that don't have a label. That's what I do most of the time. I just use things that don't have a label at all. So that way we know what it is. We're holding the apple in our hand. Then, of course, it's good to check if it's organic. That would be the next step. But fermentation is really becoming so much, let's say, focused on in terms of both edibles, and you're talking about them in terms of skincare.
Yes, and I think that the explosion, for lack of a better word, Ellen, of products like kombucha, if you were to ask like when I was giving lectures 15 or 20 years ago or longer ago, if I asked people what is kombucha, virtually nobody would know. Or asked how many people are using kombucha, very few people would say that they were. Now, it's like almost everybody has either tried it or is regularly using kombucha as a daily tonic. And I think it's arisen because we need it. We essentially need the regular replenishment of the microbiome to continue to farm the healthy species and keep biodiversity. I was raised by a physician, and unfortunately, my dad did prescribe quite a few bouts of antibiotics, and so many of us have had that experience. So it's even more important, since we've all been inoculated with antibiotics, that we continue to favor those fermented foods. And again, the movement that we are participating in is bringing more of that externally to life as well.
Yeah, it's really a burgeoning industry, and rightfully so, because it brings so much more balance and health. And of course, you've really looked into some of the excellent unique ingredients, such as the carotenoid called astaxanthin. How would that be used in beauty and skincare?
What really impressed me was when you look at one of my favorite foods is the wild Alaskan salmon, which is raised sustainably. What scientists were able to pinpoint as one of the key elements that allowed the salmon to endure intense physical stress was this pigment, this carotenoid, related to beta-carotene, but many, many times more potent and bioavailable, is this pigment called astaxanthin. And the research, a number of published studies showing that while just as it protects the salmon as it's swimming thousands of miles to its mating grounds, the same benefits can be transmitted to humans in terms of endurance and resilience under oxidative stress. And so what impressed me was most people think of vitamin C as a really important antioxidant, and of course it is, but it's a water-soluble antioxidant. And then many people think of vitamin E as a very important antioxidant, which of course it is, and that's a fat-soluble antioxidant. The beauty of astaxanthin is it's both water-soluble and fat-soluble, and so you're able to basically have many times the activity because of its ability to penetrate the mitochondria and support mitochondrial function. And so one of the areas that we have studied is how astaxanthin and other herbs can support your basic power plant of your body, your mitochondria, your energy production. And so astaxanthin is one of the key elements to support skin health and protect us from both oxygen stress, environmental pollution, and sun stress, which is all obviously very critical to healthy skin aging.
And all those things might be helpful. Something else people may recognize with astaxanthin is that it actually is something that is naturally ingested by animals, like you said, salmon and also flamingos, which brings out that beautiful orange color. Well, believe it or not, we are at the end of our time together, and we have had a wonderful discussion with Mr. Paul Schulick. And Paul will tell people to look for more at forthebiome.com. And I want to thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's really a delightful opportunity, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom through the ages with so many people. You've made immeasurable contributions.
Well, thank you, too, and thank you, listeners, so much for joining us again for Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email WHPC@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamai at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to stay with us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.